Welcome to Talk World Radio, a half-hour discussion of politics as if the people mattered. I'm David Swanson. This week on Talk World Radio, we are talking about election primaries and general elections and success and danger, as well as about the abuses being committed by ICE around the country. We are very privileged to have with us India Walton, who is a longtime community activist, emerged in 2021 as a powerful presence in the progressive movement after a stunning Democratic primary victory. Sounds familiar? Over a 16-year incumbent mayor of Buffalo, New York. Now a senior advisor at RootsAction, where I also work, she has continued to advocate for increased civic participation and policies that prioritize the poor and working class. India Walton, welcome to Talk World Radio.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're very busy, and one of the reasons you're very busy is that everybody's asking you, could what happened in Buffalo happen in New York City, God forbid? Can you explain a little bit what that means?
Sure. I think that memories of 2021 are coming back to folks' memory when I handily won the Democratic primary here in Buffalo, and my opponent, the incumbent, who's also a registered Democrat, rather than conceding, ran a write-in campaign and went on to defeat me in the November election. And he was backed by powerful interests, business lobby, developers, and even Republican supporters who generally back folks like Donald Trump.
And in the case of New York City, we've got a similarly great candidate. Everybody's very, very excited about who's won the primary. Is that good enough?
One would hope it will be good enough. And one would hope that the Democratic Party has learned lessons from the presidential election, that the policies that Mamdani ran on and the policies that I ran on are wildly popular. He's running on improving affordability in the most expensive city in the world, fast free buses, universal child care, a $30 minimum wage in municipal grocery stores, and Democrats are freaking out talking about he's too radical. Well, I say that the radical thing is that we have people in power who don't want to take care of the majority of us.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just on the substance. His policies are too good. We need horrible billionaire crafted policies, but it's racism and bigotry and xenophobia and nastiness from across the political spectrum, isn't it?
It's very concerning. And I mean, in such a convincing and stunning victory on such a great platform, no one's talking about the policies, right? No one's saying like, yeah, we don't really believe in universal child care. What they're saying is, oh my God, he was eating rice with his hands. Or, oh my goodness, what does global intifada mean when he's never even said those words himself? It's a distraction from what the issues of the day is. And I think the electorate and the voters deserve to hear about what he wants to do as mayor and not have to constantly be defending his identity, his religion, or the views and opinions of other people.
And this is how he won, right? He didn't win on identity politics. People didn't pick which religion and hair color and so forth they wanted to. He won by having an incredible platform and making powerful videos and going out and talking to people. I'm going to get you your license so you can have a food truck and not give somebody else half your money. I'm going to get you a grocery store that'll sell you food at a decent price. I'm going to, all the things that he's going to do for people. That's how he won, right?
And I think that's how he will win in November. And I think that one of the most important things that people who support him can do, folks who have a platform, is act as surrogates, right? Be there to defend him so that he can focus on making sure that his message of hope and of care gets across, and that is not this constant barrage of him always being on the defense, and that he actually gets to talk about the policies that he wants to implement as mayor of New York.
At RootsAction, we've seen some states do some decent things, like Massachusetts raised taxes on mega billionaires. And you saw some threats to, oh, we're going to flee Massachusetts. We're not going to live there anymore. I don't think much has come of that. But this is what we're hearing about New York. If you start taxing the mega wealthy who are going to make their great grandchildren, nobility, we're going to leave New York City and go to some other state that hasn't done that yet. Of course, we would like all the states to have similarly decent progressive taxes, but how seriously are people going to take these threats?
Well, the interesting thing is, David, when I ran in 2021 and I spoke to, wealthier people, definitely not billionaires, but when I spoke to wealthier people, most folks are willing to pay more taxes if it improves their quality of life and it gets them better services. The only ones who are against raising taxes on the ultra wealthy are greedy wealth hoarders, who don't mind seeing other people suffer. And the thing about it is that New York City is the financial capital of the world. These people aren't going anywhere. They're going to threaten to, but where are they going to go? First of all, they hate poor people. They hate working class people. They're not going to come live among us. They're going to remain in their $1 million, multi-million dollar penthouses in New York, and they're just going to have to complain and eat it.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. One of the reasons I love this campaign victory, even though it's only a primary so far, is that socialism won proudly and openly. Capital S socialism, like let's treat people decently and not be ashamed of it. But also peace won, which people talk about a little bit less, but I like a little bit more, because the whole campaign wasn't against socialism. The whole campaign of Cuomo and the anti-Mamdani people was, he's against genocide, therefore he's an anti-Semite. And the
Mhm.
fact that that didn't work, because I think it might have worked 6 months earlier, the fact that that didn't work, I think is hugely encouraging, isn't it?
I think so. And I think that our collective conscience as a nation and as especially Democratic voters is leveling up, right? I think that the atrocities in Gaza and what's happening over in Palestine is become a part of our everyday discourse, right? Even outside of politics, folks are concerned about the humanitarian crisis that's happening and these war crimes that are occurring. And I think that the ridiculousness of some of the line of questioning about whether Zohran was going to visit Israel, was just like, and his answer was masterful, right? I'm gonna be the mayor of New York. Like, yes, I'm gonna protect Jewish people, and I'm gonna, seek the advice of Jewish people right here in the city of New York. I have no reason to travel to Israel. And I've never seen a municipal race where foreign relations was so central to a lot of the questioning and debate.
It seemed like a cynical idea that it would be an easy way to defeat him. Call him an anti-Semite, nobody will like him. But he's not just living in New York. He has lived in New York for many years, and he has many Jewish friends and colleagues and allies in New York. So it was kind of difficult, I think.
He and Brad Lander co-endorsed one another, right? And I mean, I say that, and I'm like, it's not the same as like I have a black friend, right? Like he and Brad Lander have worked for many years together. They're both very involved with the Working Families Party, so it's not by happenstance that they co-endorsed and co-ranked each other in this election. Like they're actually familiar with each other and friendly. And I think that as the highest ranking Jewish elected official in New York City, people should trust that Brad Lander is also looking out for his own best interest and the best interest of his people. And he's advising Zohran on what the needs of his community is.
I think you're right. We're speaking with India Walton, who works as I do at RootsAction and who won the primary for mayor of Buffalo and should have become mayor of Buffalo and maybe will someday. Um, India, it seems like maybe there's an advantage for the forces of corporate pushback in New York City. They aren't even going to need a write-in, right? They're going to get names on the ballot. Is it going to be Eric Adams? Is it going to be Cuomo? Is it going to be somebody else? What are the names going to be?
Well, it looks like so far Eric Adams is definitely there. And Silwa, I always jack his name up. The founder of the Guardian Angels, he's on the Republican line. Which I think the last time he ran, he maybe got like 13% of the vote. But I think that Cuomo and Eric Adams both being in the race will play to Zohran's benefit because the same people who are going to vote for Eric Adams are likely Cuomo voters. But I do think that Zohran has enough popularity and enough momentum to pull it off in November. He had more votes in the first round than Eric Adams had in all 8 rounds in the last primary. And this is, he has the highest number of votes in a primary election in like 40 years, only second to David Dinkins. So I think that he's on the right path, and barring a strange brain-eating parasite descending upon New York City, I think that the voters are going to make the right choice in November.
Well, I wouldn't rule that out, but how many voters are there in New York City who don't vote in the Democratic primary? It's not that many, right?
So that is the interesting thing, is because Zoran brought out a lot of zero prime voters, a lot of people who had never voted in an election before. Now that is a motivated voter. That's not a person who votes just for the ritual of it or because it's what they're used to doing. That's a person who's going out and voting for Zohran. They're
Yeah.
not just voting against Cuomo, they're voting for Zohran. And that means that they're sending text messages to their friends. Don't forget to go out and vote. That means they're bringing people with them to the polls. That means they're probably talking to their boomer parents about Zohran and how great his platform is. And it also means that they're probably activated volunteers who are also going to go out and knock doors and have conversations with people or phone bank or help actually get him over the finish line. And I think that that volunteer base, he turned out more than 50,000 volunteers. I think we're going to see that continue to grow.
I certainly hope so. But what in the heck is with the Democratic Party nationally and outside of New York City? Because you would think in a normal operation, a grand success with a new approach would be wonderful news, happy news. Oh, we're so delighted to learn that this approach of offering people what they want and peace and justice and socialism that these weirdos have been telling us to try for decades actually works. What wonderful news. Let's do it everywhere. I mean, would the Democratic Party so-called leadership rather lose than abandon corporatism and militarism?
Well, again, right? The effort to continuously enclose power and wealth, right? And I said to someone, the Republicans have found their common enemy. They fight in private, and no matter how janky and weird their candidate is, if they're charismatic and weird enough for them to put them out front, everyone for the most part falls in line. Alternatively, the Democrats have the same enemy that the Republicans do, and that's poor and working class people. So our Democrats would rather punch down on the left than to embrace these progressive, young, vibrant, brilliant servant leaders who are coming up. And it's a real shame, but I think that we need to stay the course. Um, and we have to have a case study. We have to have proof of concept. I think the fact that I was able to pull off a primary win in 2021, and now here we are again 4 years later with a socialist candidate with a similar platform in an even larger city, pulling off a win means that these are not flukes. These are not, lightning striking. This is what people actually want out of their politicians. And I think that, the establishment Democrats need to line up and know that we have a successful formula and come on board.
Are we going to see a few more in some other cities around the country? Do you know of any promising candidates on the horizon?
Um, not that I know of. I know there's a young socialist woman in, I want to say Southern LA who's running for a state house seat. I can't think of her name right now. Fatima. Fatima's running in California. Um, we just had, a progressive slate up in Rochester win city council seats. So it's happening slowly but surely. But like I said, because we are up against centuries of infrastructure and establishment, progressivism has to be a national movement where we support each other from wherever we are, right? Like if I have to go from Buffalo to Rochester to support candidates there or to New York to support Zohran, that's what we have to do until we're able to catch up and get that infrastructure built out.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it. India Walton, I want to ask you also about what you're doing locally in Buffalo to protect people from being disappeared, from being lawlessly kidnapped, imprisoned, deported, because you've had at least a little bit thus far of success in protecting at least one potential victim, right?
Yeah, so so Buffalo's a border city, right? We're right across the bridge from Canada, and because of that, we are dealing not only with ICE, but we're also dealing with Customs and Border Patrol and Homeland Security here. And because this person who occupies the White House made the unilateral decision to drop bombs on Iran, there has now been a mandate sent to ICE to target Iranian nationals. And there's a person here in Buffalo who's an asylum seeker. He's a defector from Iran because of his political activism there. He wound up here in Buffalo, who is and he is him and his son are staying with a gentleman over on the west side. But it just so happens that the neighborhood he lives in has an unusually high density of organizers and activists. He actually wound up on the street that the executive director of Justice for Migrant Families live on. So when ICE showed up to their door a little over a week ago, the person he lives with knew that he didn't need to allow them into the home without a warrant, sent them away, but the neighbors saw. So immediately there was an organizing effort. We had a garden party on Saturday just to, have people out and visible. And there's been a 24-hour patrol going, watching for suspicious vehicles, taking down license plate numbers, and folks are ready to document what's happening because that individual is here legally, has been checking in with immigration, has been going to immigration court, has been trying to get a green card so that he can work, and has been taking care of his 12-year-old son and is not, has no criminal record, is a law-abiding citizen. Well, not a law-abiding citizen, a law-abiding resident of this community. And the other thing is that Buffalo had previously been a city in population decline. And now, for the first time in more than 70 years, our population is up. And it's not because we're popping out babies, it's because of our population of immigrant refugees and asylum seekers. And we need to protect them at all costs.
So what can people do? You say you don't need to let them in if they come to your door, but there are also stories of people being charged with the crime of resisting unidentified masked thugs who you would think anyone would resist. They can come after you, not identify themselves, wear masks, threaten you. And if you do anything that seems like resisting, then they've now, after the fact, got a crime to charge you with, even if they had nothing before. Uh, so what can you refuse to listen to them? Can you refuse to answer their questions? What can and can't you do?
Yeah, I think that first of all, like personal and private property, you do not have to allow anyone entry without a warrant. I think for safety's sake, we are advising people to not act or travel alone, right? When we are patrolling, we are in pairs, our phones are fully charged, we are ready to document what is happening. And you always have the right to remain silent. You don't need to answer anybody's questions. You don't have to tell them who you are. You don't have to engage with them. And I know that folks have been seeing, videos of neighborhoods sort of shouting down and running ICE out of their neighborhoods. And that's great if it works for them. But what we're not doing that because we don't want to escalate the situation in a way that might be harmful to the person who they're trying to detain. So what we're doing is casually observing, and we are making our presence such that if there is anything nefarious going on, they know that there's someone who's keeping watch and keeping tabs on what's going on.
So your best bet is being in your house, same as with COVID.
Yes,
Stay indoors.
stay
Um,
indoors.
when in past wars, even back to the world wars, when they would go after people who just happened to be of the ancestry of the enemy, it was usually with the excuse that they were likely to be spies. But with Trump tweeting everything he does, who he's going to bomb, when and where before he even does it, who's going to agree to an agreement he hasn't even proposed to them yet, what the hell is some poor guy in Buffalo going to be able to spy on that's going to betray some secret to some enemy, uh, when everything that's happening is public the minute it arises in Trump's brain cells? I mean, like, they aren't even claiming that there's any danger, right? Just that the guy is from an ancestry, from an ethnic group that should be hated, right?
That's right. And like I said, they know where he lives because he's been doing everything by the book. He's been doing what he is supposed to do. What all of the anti-immigrant people say, well, if you just came here legally, so legally he has an attorney. He's been attending court, and that's another thing we're doing is we're accompanying people to their court hearings because ICE is targeting people who are going to court. And I mean, this is the most evil and sadistic and inhumane way to treat people. And we have children who are afraid that their parents might not return home from work. That's not the community and not the America that I want to live in. And I think that there are people on all ends of the political spectrum who see how unfair this is. I mean, there's a neighborhood called Parkside in Buffalo that's pretty affluent, and there were people on a roofing job. And ICE came and pulled them off of the roofing job and took them to detention. And the neighborhood was reeling, but they didn't have the tools to resist. So now we're taking this model that we're using now, and we're going to start conducting trainings neighborhood by neighborhood, so that if this does happen, folks will know how to respond and what they're able to do.
That's great. In past eras as well, a lot of people who've been threatened with injustice in the United States have gone to Canada, and you're just across a bridge. Why not? Why not go to Toronto? Is Canada playing along with this U.S. injustice and refusing to be a sanctuary, or is it just too much trouble and hassle and expense to pick up and move to another country?
It's a lot of expense, and it's also like people have made a home here. Um, Buffalo is a very um communal type of place, and especially on the west side is very accepting of folks from other nations. And I do know of a family who had been detained at the Canadian border who wound up being released and relocating to Canada. So it has been happening already. And me personally, I'm keeping it open as an option in case it just gets to be too much here.
I can understand. I don't want all the good people to leave, because then what are we gonna have left? But I understand. So you've been working with Roots Action. What has Roots Action got going? And recent days and months?
Yeah, lots of coverage for Zohran Mamdani, just getting on, news and podcasts and in print, just you know, cautioning not only him and his campaign, but also cautioning Democrats. I think that it should send a message to Democrats about where the party, at least for voters, where we would like to see the party head. We have our teaching network. That's very successful. That where we've been, dropping all of the knowledge, everything from no war with Iran to media literacy and consuming media with the critical lens. So there's definitely some great work happening at Roots Action. We always have campaigns that folks can engage with at rootsaction.org. Wonderful interviews and original pieces up on Progressive Hub. So folks should go definitely and check us out.
And I know we've got a lot of online teachings coming up in the coming days, screening a film with the director there to discuss it, Robert Greenwald, about Israel killing more journalists than pretty much all major wars put together. One about sanctions around the world. One about state level successes on progressive policies, which you don't hear much about at the national level. One about Trump and militarism, which should be pretty awful. So yeah, people should go to rootsaction.org. What about it? We've got just a couple minutes. What about people who want to help with making sure Mamdani is mayor of New York, or any other good campaigns and causes they can help with? What do you recommend?
Sure. In the words of my great sister Nina Turner, time, talent, and treasure. If you have time, I'm sure there's phone banking. Go to Zohran's um, website and sign up for volunteer shifts. If you can make it down to New York and get on some doors, do that. And if you can give him a few dollars, he maxed out very quickly for primary fundraising, but now it's back open again for the general. So give him a couple of dollars. And like I said, folks who have a platform or have a base or a following continue to defend him. And don't let the corporate media and the sort of centrist, cowardly, weak-kneed, jelly-backed Democrats slander him into losing in November, because we know that he can win.
He was saying for a long time, don't give me money. I can't accept any more money. Give me your efforts and your energy. And that was very unusual and wonderful to hear. Not true anymore. That was for the primary. Now he can use money and people should send him money.
Yep. He can raise funds again.
Good to know. Any rich people, tell them we need to fund the socialist candidate in this godforsaken system we've got going here. But it's getting better in some places, and you don't hear enough about it. And India Walton is part of it. India Walton is a senior advisor at Roots Action. You can check out rootsaction.org. India, thanks for everything you're doing and for coming on Talk World Radio.
Thank you.
This is Talk World Radio. I'm David Swanson. Take action at rootsaction.org. Help end war at worldbeyondwar.org. Read or listen to today's Peace Almanac entry at peacealmanac.org. All past shows can be heard at talkworldradio.org. Talk World Radio is produced in Charlottesville, Virginia, and syndicated by Pacifica Network. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way.